Let us now discuss an example of risk response planning. Take a look at the project context and the top risk described in the slide. Before you move on to the next slide, please try to identify and note down as many mitigation actions as possible for this risk. For the project and risk described in the last slide, we have come up with several mitigation actions as shown here. This is not an exhaustive list. You may have come up with some more. Let us take a look at the first one. Your mitigation action is to get the customer to ratify your design. What does this action achieve? It reduces the probability of any serious misinterpretation of requirements on your part. There may still be some misinterpretation, but they are not likely to be serious. Therefore, the impact, say rework at a later stage, is also reduced. However, there is a cost associated with this option. The cost is the customer's review effort for ratifying the design. So there is a benefit in terms of reduced risk probability and impact, and there is a cost. Likewise, let us examine the second mitigation action. Several incremental deliveries are useful because you get frequent and early feedback on your work. This results in lower risk impact because when you get earlier feedback, you can fix issues earlier in the project. This is always cheaper than fixing towards the end of the project. So the potential risk impact is reduced compared to, say, the option of making one final delivery. That is the benefit. However, making several deliveries pushes up the cost. So as in the previous case, you have to consider the cost of mitigation action and the benefit from it. A similar analysis can be made for the next three actions as well. You can do that as an exercise and see for yourself the cost benefit in each case. Usually assessing cost is easy enough. The benefit, that is reduction in risk probability or risk impact, is not so easy to assess. A degree of judgment is involved. Once you have the costs and the benefits, you are in a position to choose one or more of the possible mitigation actions. This is done by using a measure called risk reduction leverage. We will describe it in the next slide. If you have many mitigation options for a risk, how do you go about choosing one or more of them? You can do so by using what is called risk reduction leverage. Risk reduction leverage enables us to assess the cost benefit of various possible mitigation options and decide which ones to implement. Risk reduction leverage is a ratio. The numerator is the difference between the estimated risk score as a result of the proposed mitigation action and the risk score without any mitigation action. This will be a negative number. The denominator is the risk reduction cost or the cost of the proposed mitigation action. So ignoring the negative sign, larger the ratio, better the mitigation in terms of cost benefit. Let us next calculate the risk reduction leverage for some of the mitigation actions in our example. We have shown in this slide the risk that we saw earlier and its associated risk score prior to any mitigation action. That risk score happens to be 0.56. Next, we have taken one of the mitigation options from our earlier list, hiring a domain expert offshore. As a consequence of this action, the new risk probability is estimated to reduce from 0.7 to 0.3 and impact to reduce to 0.4. So the risk score is the product of 0.3 and 0.4, which is 0.12. The cost of the domain expert is assumed to be 40 units. Similarly, for mitigation actions number 2 and number 3, we have assessed the expected reduction in risk scores and costs of mitigation. With this information, we can compare the three mitigation options in terms of risk reduction leverage. Please take a few moments to look at the calculations of risk reduction leverage for the three mitigation actions. As we said earlier, the most desirable mitigation action is the one in which the reduction in risk score is the highest per unit of cost. Ignoring the negative sign, higher the number, better the cost benefit. So the most desirable mitigation action is action number 2, which is to adopt incremental delivery. This is followed by action number 1, which is hiring a domain expert offshore. And then action number 3, which envisages shifting the complex modules of the project to be done on-site. Hope the concept of risk reduction leverage is clear. Take a look at the question in the last bullet and come up with an answer.